the one-to-many on a PC card over a network, and I gave an example of that. Many-to-many on a PC, network locally, many-to-many on a network remotely. Most of the systems that are used by the police are usually of the last two. And the important thing there is, no matter which of these that you look at, the police quite often have them set up such that, as I said earlier, you've got the camera remotely and always the cameras remotely. The only difference is where it fits into locally, where the monitoring stations are. Yep. This is my, I think that this is my slide that my wife asks me to put into every presentation I do. It's called the Pulp Fiction break. Yes, it is. I'll give you a quick history of the Pulp Fiction break. The Pulp Fiction break, my wife says, if you're doing a presentation for more than an hour, for up to an hour, you need to have a Pulp Fiction break to make sure nobody's fallen asleep. Originally, when this came about, and I don't do this at conferences now, if anyone's watched Pulp Fiction, basically there's a scene right at the start where they're in the restaurant and the lady stands up and she says, if any of you certain people move, I will execute every last one of you. And I used to put that in there to wake up the people who may be in the session and may be wanting to sleep. So basically, this is the Pulp Fiction break, and we're going to go through it fairly quickly. Right, CCTV implementation issues. There's a whole range of issues that create their own vulnerabilities within the system. Data sharing, live and archived. Basically, all the functionality I've been talking about falls into a lot of these categories that I'm going to cover now. In terms of data sharing, you get a whole range of different organizations, different police services, different police units, and different government units that might need to share the data. They might need to share the live data, for whatever reason, and they might need to share the archive data. Example of sharing archive data is basically where, you know, like I gave the example of the London bombers earlier on. They tracked that the London bombers had been doing a reconnaissance trip to London from Leeds, and they looked at all the archives and found out when they came down, what they'd done, where they stopped, and so on. So that's archive stuff. So there is a whole range of functionality built around sharing data. Now, to be able to share data, obviously, on a network, you need to have the right controls in place. Unfortunately, when these things are built, the controls are not into place because they're built for functionality, not for security. Usefulness of open and closed systems, I've covered that to an extent because basically, you know, to be able to make any real use of it, it has to be open to a certain extent. Now, I'm going to throw in a couple of things there. I've seen CCTV systems abused in films quite often. Three really good examples, and these are quite possible and probable. Some of them may not be true today as it used to be. The first one is, if anyone's seen the Thomas Crown affair, a couple of years back, in how he achieved what he did in terms of abusing the CCTV system was, he attacked the air conditioning, and when the air conditioning, I can't remember if it went up or went down, affected the CCTV camera. That is absolutely true because all CCTV systems have a certain temperature within which they can operate. And that's why when you're buying a camera for indoor or outdoor use, you need to choose carefully. Yep. Another one, if you've got, in Ocean's 11, in that one there's a scene where they're in a lift and the lift has been shot before, and then another one straight after that where they've got a scene within the vault, and that vault scene has already been shot. So what you can do is, what they done was they put in a feed in the middle. It's like the man in the middle attack. However, the more modern day version of that really would be attacking the DNS, and that you can really do that with the system. The third example, and that's quite probable, if anyone's seen the Bourne Ultimatum, in that there's a scene fairly earlier on where Jason Bourne is in London at Waterloo Station, and the CIA are using the cameras of British Transport Police, because I assume that they own the cameras within the transport area. The CIA are using them, they're zooming in, they're tracking him, they're following them, they're moving their cameras around remotely from the States to track Bourne and to kill the person that they kill. So, you know, all these things are quite probable because the system allows, you know, people to be able to take control of these systems. So remote control is very, very important to these systems because you're not going to be by the camera. And the question, what is a network? Well, the thing is, a network can be anything when it comes to CCTV systems. It's difficult to define what the network is, whether the CCTV system connected to the network is a network or it's part of the whole big network until you unravel what you've actually got. Current network setups, differences. I won't go into that at the moment, I'm just aware of the time. Whose network is it? That's a very, very political one because quite often different CCTV systems are owned by different people compared to who owns the network, and you have some conflicts there as to what they can and cannot allow if there is an issue. That is a very political issue, and it's cropped up in the UK a few times. Installation, security, I've mentioned that. Interoperability between technologies, where you've got traditional CCTV systems, and they've been around a while, and then you've updated some of the other cameras or added to existing cameras, so you've got traditional network CCTV and what's new network TV systems. So you've put them all together. Basically, all you've done is you added a few more components so you can view them and make the traditional closed-circuit TV work onto your network, and that's through middleware. And there are lots and lots of products around that enable you to do that. Again, our research has shown that they are vulnerable because nobody's that interested in security. They're all interested in the leaving the security to the network level. Responsibilities for different elements, again for different parts of the system in terms of recording. So you might have some people owning the cameras, and where it's recorded and what happens to the recording is controlled by someone else. Control of the overall system is different. Recording where it's based, the type of recording it is, etc. Privacy laws vary. Alerts and who deals with them. So, for example, if you've got night cameras at one place, you're not expecting to see people there, you can set up alerts. So basically, if anyone comes into a room, there will be an alert, an email that could be sent, or there could be another alert that's sent, and who deals with that. So there's a whole range of functionality around that could be abused. We've done tests where we've basically set up hundreds and hundreds of alerts for next to nothing happening, and then get these alerts sent and create a fault, create a situation where it seems as if there's a fault on the system. Lack of established network standards for secure installation. That's a fairly big one because there are no established standards at all. In the same way in security, we've got a whole range of standards that have been coming up that people have been looking at, how you can secure this, how you can secure that, the ways to audit things and so on. So lack of auditing, pen testing approach. There's lack of technical network maintenance and support from a security perspective from the outset. Basically, when you have your network in a corporate environment, you know you need to maintain it, you need to make sure you know what's going on in it, so you may well be monitoring it in big detail. On these, no one has a clue. No one thinks it's useful or important. So if somebody managed to find a camera that they shouldn't have access to, basically they could sit there trying to get into the administrator's password, and they could do it manually, and they could be sitting there 2 years, keep trying different passwords every single day, and no one would know. Or they could sit there with a password cracker and maybe crack it within 2 or 3 minutes, and again, no one would know, and you know, because no one's monitoring it. Yeah. Finance, who pays for the system? That is a fairly big one, and you know, there's lots of things here which seem as if they're not vulnerabilities. The vulnerabilities as a result of that is, you know, how, at the moment in England, an example is the fact that cameras were financed about 10, 15 years ago by the government through capital expenditure. Now, the camera has long exceeded its use-by date. So the camera should not currently be used at all because the technology is no longer reliable, and if anything happened to it, no one would necessarily know. So who pays for it is an issue. Now, you've got a similar situation with some of the early network cameras that came on board as well. Again, there are issues around that. So who pays for it is an issue. And if you were looking at a particular system, understanding all these things is very, very important in terms of if you're doing an audit and you're trying to find out, you will need to know who's doing what, who's responsible for what, where it came from, how old it is, and how the decisions were made. Manufacturers via security, I've covered that. Installer experience, again, I've mentioned that. System administrators, network knowledge. Most of these guys do not have a clue. If you ever get a chance to go into where all these screens are, and the monitoring stations around London, there used to be, if I remember correctly, 11 all around London at various places. What they're doing now is they're going to put them all together into 3 separate areas. None of these 3 areas are going to have necessarily, and I say necessarily because this may change, anyone that I know that's a systems administrator that understands networks and what networks do, how they work, what you're supposed to do to maintain everything, and everything in the way that you want it to, that's going to give you the CIA. Yeah. Basics in terms of securing a system. What I've tried to give you a background of is that, because there is quite a lot there, is that everything is left to the network level. There are vulnerabilities that aren't necessarily at the network level, which you can attack fairly easily. However, in terms of securing the cameras don't come with any built-in security. So your only chance really of securing the system is at the network level. Yep. And in terms of at the network level, because the product itself has got some things that you can change, these are the basics, and I do mean the basics that you can try and approach to make sure that the system is much harder to find. So, for example, change the admin page. In terms of changing the admin page, we've done a lot of research work in the past where we've, I tell you what, I'm going to stop there. I've got a quick demo I want to do. Basically, I've been doing some work with some of the universities, and I've been supervising some research projects of the master's students, security research, security students. And one of them didn't really know anything about CCTV systems at all. He wrote a project, and what happened was I said to him, right, what I want you to do is think like a hacker, try and find some cameras. When you found some cameras, let me know. He couldn't find any cameras. He said, how do I search for them? We went through it, and in about 5 minutes, I showed him how he could find some cameras and he could find any camera he wanted fairly quickly. Then I said to him, right, okay, what I want you to do is, again, just to show how easy it is, I want you to try and see if you can set up some basic pages to control the pan, tilt, zoom of remote cameras. So I want you to show that you can control cameras remotely that you've seen on the internet. So what I want to do is, if we could switch over the screen to the demo, if we can switch over. You need to take the timer off. Oh, right, good stuff. Okay, it's basically this interface you see here, this was developed by a student, master's student, and basically he didn't spend too long on it. It's a very quick demo. He put together a couple of pages on a couple of cameras where the camera can involve some remote control, and he's not been taught in scripting very, very well. So he put together this page, and it didn't take him very, very long to put into place. Now, what we've got here, do you want to play around with it and show some of the controls? Do you want to zoom in or move around or whatever? This is a very slow connection. But you can do a whole lot, and you can develop a page, because these cameras quite often have, well, they all have a web server, but they quite often have PHP to enable that remote control. They have software developer kits. They have a whole range of functionality which enable you to do that. And the focus, as I said, has been on functionality. So they've tried to enable people to be able to do this to an extent, but they haven't provided the functionality so that you can control it, and only you and not anyone else. All right, yep, there we go. We've just zoomed in. Don't know if anyone noticed that. But you can do a whole range of things, and you can control them, and you can create scripts. The session